7 o'clock on the dot. The chat is open, and we're going to dive directly into our presentation for this evening. I'll be your host for the next 30, 40 minutes. And yeah, feel free to put your questions, et cetera, in the chat. And at the end, we'll see what we can cover, what we can go over. Tonight's program and presentation is the beginning of a series that I believe that you will be delighted, surprised, sometimes a little bit amazed at the stuff that is not taught in school when it comes to money and finance. So let me jump into it. And I will tell you this, that the best part of the presentation tonight, the education, the information, the absolute best part, I am saving to the end. So don't tune out because you will miss the best part, which will be coming at the end of the program. Okay, so let me share my screen. And Ellen, you've got the door. I see Jean's coming in. All right, here we go. So the idea here, of course, is taking charge of your financial future. I am not going to hit every single bullet point, word, letter on every single slide because I think that makes it a very boring and dull. You heard of death by PowerPoint? That's sort of a death by PowerPoint. My background has been in the financial planning business for the past 25 years. I am a fee-based fiduciary financial planner. Fee-based means not commission, totally commission-based fees, so on. And I work with my registered investment advisory through Royal Fund Management. New Life Financial Planning LLC is our company. Disclosures, this is educational purposes only. The results, your results may vary. Your success may vary depending on what you do and your circumstances and situation. We always encourage folks to seek professional advice before making any investment, financial, legal, tax, or other decisions. And past performance may not be indicative of future results. So we're not making any promises here. Again, this is just a purely educational presentation. We hope to enlighten and inspire and breathe hope into some folks who maybe don't have a lot of hope for their financial future. The goal is to get your money to work harder for you than you work for it, not to always be chasing after dollars for your entire life. And that could happen for folks at any age, right? Financial freedom is not an age. Peter, we do not turn around and say 65 or whatever, poof, the retirement fairy doesn't come out of heaven and wave her magic wand and say, poof, you're retired. Financial freedom can happen at any age, and financial freedom really is when work is optional and retirement is affordable. Now, what does that mean? That means now you're free to do whatever it is that you'd like to do, and it doesn't have to be at 65 or 70, or maybe it doesn't have to be ever, right? You don't have to stop working. It's that freedom, that peace of mind to know that the bills are all paid, whether you make any money out there or not. I want to share with you tonight some of the rules to win the money game. Like I said, at the end of the program, the last few slides are the most important. So make sure that you stick around for those, because I'm going to share with you some really eye-opening things that after you've seen, it's sort of like the Matrix where you take the red pill or the blue pill. And I always forget which one is which. But if you take the red pill, all the matrix will be revealed. That's the idea. Well, if you look at the game tic-tac-toe, if you've ever played tic-tac-toe as a kid, when you first started playing the game, you found that you lost to someone experienced every single time because they knew the rules and you didn't. What happened when you learned how to play tic-tac-toe? They couldn't beat you anymore, right? The same idea and concepts apply to any game that we're playing. Now, the money game is a serious game. but it still is similar in many ways because you need to know what the rules are. You know, they can be complex, and sometimes people are operating under outdated, misconceived ideas. But here's the idea. Once you learn the rules of the game, making zero your hero, and the idea is to eliminate all the ways that you can lose. So if we eliminate all the ways that you can lose, you will never lose again, and you will always win. Now, what do we mean by lose? Our goal is to get you as close as possible to zero debt, zero tax, and zero risk. Those are the most popular ways that most people lose in the money game. We're going to talk a little bit about financial planning, protection, wealth accumulation, retirement planning, estate planning, and a little bit about business planning tonight. What is a financial plan? Well, it's basically a way for you to reach your life goals, not somebody else's goals, but your particular goals. Just watch your background, please. Your particular goals, whether it be sending children to college, retiring early, buying a vacation home, starting a business. And down the bottom is the key here. Those with a formal plan tend to save 3 times as much as those without a plan. The importance of a plan can't be overstated. What happens when folks put together a plan? Well, first is, and I'm sure that folks would agree, Brian Muka, I'm sure you would agree with this, that where performance is measured, performance tends to improve. And once folks have a plan and see that they're making progress towards their goal, they get excited and encouraged and not only continue, but sometimes they increase their savings goals. The idea is to live below your means, save money, and the idea of the millionaire next door. The millionaire next door is not necessarily a rock star or a professional athlete. That's a very small percentage of the population. The millionaire next door is someone who lived below their means, do not incur lots of debt, are not worried about keeping up with the Joneses, and financial freedom and financial independence is more important to them than the kind of car that they drive and that sort of thing. Okay. You know, working with an experienced professional can help guide you, identify your current situation, where you are now, where you want to be, what are your options that are available. And we don't have, as a firm, we don't have minimums. Some firms have 500,000, a million or more for a minute. We don't do that. We work with folks, whatever their beginnings are. And from the most humble beginnings can become great things, right? You know, the great oak tree started from a humble acorn. And that's sort of the idea. No matter where you are, get started right away with something, right? Beginning to put a plan in motion. The statistics out there are scary. We live in one of the wealthiest nations in the world, but most of our population fails financially. It's sad. 40% of Americans have no savings. 30% of Americans have no life insurance. Only 1 in 5 people will become disabled, and most people have no disability insurance. Who's going to pay the bills if you're sick and you can't work? 70%, 7 out of 10, 2/3 of people over age 65 will need long-term care services. And Medicare does not pay for those services. Most people have no idea that that's the case. So emergency savings, life insurance, disability, long-term care. How about this? Double duty, triple duty, quadruple duty dollars. And the idea is to make your money work harder than you do. If you could cover with $1 all of those things under one umbrella, as well as saving for retirement, creating an emergency fund, and as I said at the end, I'm going to talk about the big one, and that's opportunity cost, taking advantage of opportunity cost. So be thinking in terms of, how do I get my dollars to work harder? How do I give them 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs? If every single dollar has a job, every single dollar has a purpose, and they have more than one purpose, or 2 or 3 or 4, even better. We follow 6 simple steps to financial independence, financial freedom: increase cash flow, establish emergency fund, manage debt, ensure proper protection, build long-term savings, and preserve and protect your estate. We can take care of all 6 of those with 2 programs for most people, and affordable no matter where you are to get started. Now, we haven't seen folks who had a financial situation or a financial problem that that was too small for us to handle, and yet we also haven't seen folks who's not yet that were so completely put together that we couldn't somehow improve their plans and their programs. Okay, and we don't charge anything to do that, and I'll cover that if you want to engage us. So step number 1, increase your cash flow. Find money where it normally hides. We look to free up money that you're already spending. So the idea, Alma, is that if you could create a solid financial security plan where it didn't cost you anything extra on a monthly basis, that would be a no-brainer, right? For the same dollar outflow that you already have now, if you could re-engineer those dollars, get better control over those dollars, and make those dollars work for you, that would be a wonderful thing, right? We can't do that for every single person in every single situation, but in many cases we can. Some ways we do that is redirect money that's going to debt. Let's get you out of debt. Let's get rid of and eliminate that debt, and that money that was going towards debt, money that you're maybe unnecessarily and unknowingly transferring away. And that's an opportunity cost. Again, at the end, I'll cover that. Okay. Have at least 3 to 6 months of liquid money in a real emergency fund. We saw a lot of people suffering during COVID who didn't have an emergency fund, and they were thrown into financial crisis. Many people are 1 or 2 paychecks away from the poorhouse. You know, some folks say a paycheck and a flat tire would miss a paycheck and have a flat tire would really spin them out of control. And not using credit cards as an emergency fund. This gives you breathing room. It's a buffer zone between you and the real world. When it comes to debt, you know, there is good debt and there is bad debt. However, most people have lots and lots of bad debt and very little to no good debt. Using debt tax advantage when possible, and restructuring debt in a way to bring cash flow to the table. Reduce and eliminate. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this, without spending any extra money. Again, redesigning, re-engineering how those dollars are directed so that you can get double duty, triple duty dollars to work for you and eliminate that debt. Once we're out of debt, first of all, when most people really learn how debt works, they're never quite the same in the future, right? And then create your own bank so that you can, when you need money to borrow it, you borrow it from yourself. And that's what we're going to talk about at the end. Make sure you're properly protected from a catastrophe, accident, illness, injury, long-term care, sudden disability, that you are protected from all the things that can happen to you in life. Doesn't cause a financial meltdown. You know, building long-term savings is a must. It must outpace inflation, minimize taxes. You know, the big killers of wealth, the number 1 killer of wealth is taxes. And do you have a tax plan as part of your financial plan? And again, financial independence is nothing more than a pool of money big enough to produce an income stream to pay all your bills and meet all your needs. And then lastly, once we've built an estate, we want to preserve and protect that estate so that as much as possible goes to your heirs and your beneficiaries. Now, when we say an estate, many people think of the big house on the hill and so on. Estate really is just all the stuff that you own. It would be a terrible shame to see 10, 20, 30, 50% of your estate get eaten up in probate expenses and taxes and lawyer fees and so on, right? We want to make sure that there's proper guardianship for children. Again, eliminate probate expenses, that folks have living wills, durable powers of attorney, and healthcare proxy, and you can put all those in place relatively easy and doesn't really have to be that expensive. So my question to you is, when is your projected debt-free date? Now, I would suggest to you that if you don't know what that date is, you may never get out of debt. When is your projected financial independence date? If you don't know when that is, you need a plan. You need a way to get there, right? And I don't care where you're getting started from, but you need to be able to have a date certain that you'll be debt-free and financially independent on such and such a date, and a realistic goal and plan to get there, okay? Now, just to give you an idea, start early, start now. If you didn't start 20, when is the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago, 30 years ago. If you didn't plant that tree 20 or 30 years ago, when's the next best time? Today, not tomorrow. You know, one of the other big killers of wealth is procrastination. And many people suffer from the shuns, right? From inflation, from taxation, and from Mark Campbell, procrastination, right? They got a case of the shuns. So the advantage of starting early, if John saved $100 a month for 32 years, that's 143,000. We're assuming a 7% return. If Jane saved $100 a month and she started from age 22 instead of age 33, and Bill saved $100 a month for 43 years, you can see that the time value of money and compounding over time really makes a big difference. And Albert Einstein called compound interest the greatest invention of mankind. He said those that understand compound interest really get and understand one of the most powerful financial concepts there are. Compound interest really is interest on your principal and interest on your interest, compounding over time. And if you're taking notes, I would write this down. $1 doubled 20 times. If you had to guess, how much does $1 grow to double 20 times? 1 becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512. Kind of get the idea. $1 doubled 20 times grows to over $1,043,000. Now, not now, but when you have a calculator, go back and check my math. You'll see that it's true. That's how important doubling and compounding your money is. Now, I want to illustrate as well the destructive power of taxes. If you stopped in between each double and paid taxes at 30%, that same $1, instead of growing to $1,043,000, would only grow to about $43,000. That's $1 million mistake, failing to take taxes into consideration. And I'm not talking about tax deferral, because tax deferral is just kicking the can down the road. I'm talking about bona fide, genuine tax-free. Having a diversified plan, monies in buckets, spreading your assets across different types of accounts, and diversification really means tax diversification. I'll ask folks all the time, what is your tax mitigation plan? And I get a deer in the headlights. What do you mean, tax mitigation? What does that even mean? I didn't even know that I could plan for taxes, that I could lower my taxes. We say pay the absolute legal minimum required. So I want you to think about how ridiculous this might sound. And I love picking on Peter. So Peter goes into his accountant, does his taxes, and the tax accountant says, Peter, your tax bill is $2,000. And you go, no, I'm going to send an extra 10 grand in plus the $2,000. The problem is people are unknowingly doing that all the time, and they don't even realize it because they've never evaluated ways to lower their taxes. Putting a plan together is important, you know, understanding your risk tolerance, your wealth accumulation strategy. These are all topics that we're going to cover in financial literacy going forward. I want to also let folks know that sometimes the language, the verbiage that's being used, some people are intimidated by it. This is not beneath anyone. Anyone can learn this stuff. Sometimes the companies make things overly complex. We'll help you to cut through the jargon and the nomenclature and the wording being used so that you can evaluate things, have a structure, a framework to evaluate strategies going forward. Okay. And again, the problems that we're faced in America, again, we live in one of the wealthiest nations in the world, but most people today are retiring and depending completely on Social Security. 36% of the average American's income is based on Social Security. Pensions are a thing of the past. Healthcare costs keep going up. The workforce, a lot of uncertainty in the workforce as far as downsizing, capsizing. And, I think one of the most exciting things and scariest things at the same time is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, I think, is going to be revolutionary in positive ways and potentially not so positive ways when it comes to knowledge-based type workers. Now, what does that mean? That means doctors, lawyers, accountants, and so on, maybe even financial planners, will be augmented and replaced. We'll need fewer and fewer of them to get more and more work done. Where do those people go to get jobs? Right? There'll be more and more people in the workforce, and we hope more and more jobs available for them. And then lastly, people are living longer than ever before. Okay. So how much do you need to save in order to save $1 million at retirement? And by the way, $1 million ain't what $1 million used to be. And I don't want to sound flip about that, but if you're age 30 and we're assuming a 6% growth rate, you need to save $699. If you wait 10 years, it goes to $1,436. If you're doing it age 50 to age 65, now it's $3,421. Why is that? Because you've lost out on that compounding growth. The difference between a 6% return and an 8% return, you can see is quite significant. Just getting that little bit of extra return makes a big, big impact and difference. Now, I would suggest to you that if you are 50 or older and don't have the money saved that you need, that there are ways to catch up, and we'd be happy to share those with you. Okay. Maximizing the money, regardless of the amount, how you distribute it, your estate on your passing, knowing what it's worth, the difference between taxable estate and probate estate, what will you owe in federal and or estate death taxes, what are the fees and expenses. And this is about being responsible to your family, because frankly, you're gone. You have no more worries. It's about what sort of a mess do you leave behind for them? And we have great programs to help folks to do that. Common estate planning tools, wills, trust, durable powers of attorney, healthcare proxy. Those are the basic tools that everyone, regardless of the size of your estate, really needs. And if you're a business owner, things like succession planning. Who we have seen, Ellen and I worked for a company, very successful, multi-million-dollar enterprise, and the owner was missing at sea, had a terrible estate plan, ended up, in order to pay the estate taxes, had to sell his interest, damn near impoverishing his children to pay the estate taxes on the business. I'm sure that was not his intention. Business owners sometimes too busy managing day to day. What happens to your business if something happens to you? Whether you're a business owner or just collecting a paycheck, who's going to pay the bills if you're sick and you can't work? Who's going to take over the business and run it smoothly if you retire? And that, for business owners, is succession planning, retirement planning, estate planning, and key employee planning. Preparing your financial future now, analyze your current needs, identify your goals, develop a sound plan, monitor it regularly. This is a living, breathing thing that you don't just prepare it, put it in a drawer, and forget about it. You want to update it for changes in circumstances, for changes in tax laws, so that you're, you know, there's a very esteemed jurist. His name was Justice Leonard Hand, said that there are two tax codes. And in fact, he was head of the tax court. Said there's two tax codes in America. There's the tax code for the informed, and there's the tax code for the uninformed. Guess which one pays more in taxes, right? Okay, so now we're at the best part. If you were multitasking, if you were texting on your phone or whatever, now is the time to perk up your ears, because I want to share with you something called opportunity cost. And most people have never heard of or understand what opportunity cost is, and it's costing them a fortune. We're going to use the example of buying automobiles. Everyone realizes that cars are expensive, but they don't really realize how expensive they are. Over a lifetime, you pay financing on the car, plus you pay something called an opportunity cost. What's an opportunity cost? What could we have done with that money if we had not transferred that money away to GMAC or Nissan Motor Corp, if instead we were able to keep that money and keep those earnings in our account instead of transferring it away? And that's the idea and the concept of becoming your own bank and being your own banker. So we're going to go through an example of what this means, and I think a very conservative example. By the way, if you lease a car or pay cash, you still have opportunity cost. So here's our example. 40-year-old couple, they purchase one new vehicle every 4 years at a cost of $30,000. Now, these slides are a little old. I don't know what cars are going for today, but I think this is pretty conservative. They expect to drive until they're age 80 because they live in Florida and they can get away with it. So over the course of 40 years, they will buy 10 new cars. Assumptions that we're making here is we're not factoring any money down or inflation, although we do know that prices will go up in the future. We're assuming that they can earn an 8% on their investments and that they have an 8% opportunity cost. And we're also going to use an 8% loan finance rate. Okay. If they continue to finance one car every 4 years at $30,000 over 40 years, they will transfer away from them to the banks, to GMAC, $300,000 in opportunity cost. The more cars you add to it, the bigger the loss. So in principle, that's $300,000. The interest on that is $51,000. And look at what opportunity cost is. Nearly $300,000. That's $648,000. Now, if both husband and wife drive and do the same thing, 2 cars in a household, that's well over $1 million. Now, we're not saying to buy fewer cars. We're not saying to buy less expensive cars. We're saying how you finance those cars is all the key. And here's the idea. You build your own bank to borrow and pay yourself back the principal, the interest, and all of the opportunity cost on all your major purchases. So you self-finance everything. What are we talking about? College educations, boats, houses, vacation homes, vacations, cars. In this example, we just said with automobiles. Now, you can't start off right out of the bat, right off the bat with a $30,000 bank. You build up and you accumulate that in your bank, and at interest where you have it liquid and you can borrow from yourself and pay yourself back. At the same time, your account still continues to grow, and we would like to see that in a market type situation where it's growing with market type returns and doing it in a tax-free environment. So your earnings are tax-free, your loans are tax-free, the interest you pay yourself back is tax-free. And that's self-financing everything. So I want you to think about this. If the only thing someone did was change the way they financed automobiles, that is hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of dollars extra in their bank without spending one additional penny than they're already spending. That's the idea of opportunity cost. Recapture all of those unnecessarily and unknowingly transferring that money away. I want to also give you another example about opportunity cost. So the example that I gave to you, and Peter, I'm always picking on Peter, but if Peter were to send unknowingly and unnecessarily send extra money to the IRS, $10,000, I don't know, $3,000, we don't know unless we really look at it, how much might be transferred away. That money being transferred away is lost forever. If, however, he was able to keep that money and let it grow, the interest on that and the compounding on that would grow, and that's opportunity cost. So it's not just with the things that we buy like automobiles, it's any unnecessarily and unknowingly transferring away money, risk, fees, taxes, cars, purchases, etc. Now, I hope that many folks take a hold of what we did this evening and begin to implement a plan right away. It doesn't matter how you get started, you must get started immediately. Take control of your financial future. And if you'd like a free consultation, we'd be happy to do that. If we're able to help you, great. If you hire us to implement, great. If you don't, we'll still be friends. Okay? I want to thank you for attending this evening. And let me stop the share here. I'm going to take a real quick look to see if there are any questions in the chat. Any questions, comments that you have in the chat? Ellen, I see you put in a jot form. If you want more information, if you'd like to attend future classes, please fill out and complete that jot form, and we will send you more information. If you'd like to meet with us, we'd be happy to meet with you as well. Okay. Any? I don't see any other questions. Brian Muka, especially when there's a feedback. The red pill, blue pill. Back to the illusion. The blue pill is back to the illusion. Please take the red pill today, everyone. Take the red pill. Don't take the blue pill. All right. Thanks, everybody. I hope that was worthwhile. Good deal. Good deal. We'll be doing this once a month. Uncle Dan, good to see you. Scott Christensen, Jean, Janine, Andres, good to see you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. And if we don't see you sooner, we'll see you later.
Once a week or
Thanks,
once a month?
Brian. That was very
Once
good.
a month. Once a month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent, Brian. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Every the third Thursday of the month.
Cool.